I can totally fix this. Megan contacted me asking for some help with some problems she was having with her rake brush. I had her send a video of what was going on so that we can then try to solve the problem. So let's take a look.
Hi Lisa, my name is Megan. I'm Pink1792 Megs on YouTube. I really appreciate you taking the time to see what I'm struggling with. I'm using the King Art rake brushes that you had originally recommended in one of your reviews, and Hobby Lobby branded paint to try this. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I've got my wet brush here, and I remember in one of your videos you said there's a specific consistency to this. I usually go until I can see where some of the frays are starting to happen. And once I can see that that's happening, that's when I try to go up here. And I'm not quite sure if it's my twisting or my grip is too controlled or what's happening, but this is generally what I'm struggling with. I'll go over here to the gray side if you can see a little better. I'm not getting the nice kind of wispy hairs that you seem to be able to get in your work.
Pretty excited because now that I've seen the problem, I can totally fix this. Let's head into the studio. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is you are using the Hobby Lobby brand paint. I've got the Liquitex Basics. The thing with Hobby Lobby paint, it's really thick and goopy. It's almost, you occasionally hear people talk about acrylic paints being plasticky. Hobby Lobby just encompasses that very well. Their paint has a high gloss to it already, whereas the Liquitex Basics has a matte finish, so you're gonna have some differences there. But I do wanna point out that is going to be a difference. That is a much thicker paint than what I use, so you're gonna need to thin that down with a little bit more water than I might need to. The next problem that you're having is that you are not thinning that paint down enough. So I mean, I guess that goes back to the first problem, but we're going to dip a decent amount of water in there and really thin that paint out quite a bit. Look how thin that is. Look how transparent it is. You need to have that really thin in order for this brush to work. It's very similar to working with a liner brush. The consistency that you've got that paint has it working like your typical filbert, where it's just a normal solid brush stroke. So here, look how thin I can get these lines and lots of lines, because of how much water I've mixed in with that. The other thing is obviously I'm not pushing very hard. I am barely letting the tip of those bristles drag across the canvas there. Now, I am using a Frederick's watercolor canvas board for this. It is really smooth, so getting fine details like this, these little lines, is going to be much, much easier. And just for transparency, I am sponsored by Frederick's. They did provide me with this canvas that I'm using for this demonstration, but they were already the only canvas I used. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Okay, the next problem that it appears you're having is you are taking that dark color of brown and going back over another dark color. Won't show up. It doesn't matter how perfect your brush stroke is, nothing is going to show up. The paint is very translucent, and then top that off with thinning it with more water. It's going to be even more translucent. The more water you add, the more translucent that paint is going to become. So what we want to do instead, I'm going to rinse that brush out. We'll take some white paint. I'm going to thin that just like I did before with the brown. And you can use unbleached titanium white for this, any opaque paint. So titanium white and unbleached titanium white are typically going to be my go-tos. So now when I do this, I can make a bunch of nice little brush strokes. I'm at a really weird angle to record this, so I apologize. I'm having a hard time balancing this. I'm actually resting my hand on my water dish. That is weird. But see how we're getting these nice fur strokes, and they show up really well. And you may be thinking, well, I don't want white fur. I needed brown fur. We're gonna fix that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and paint some of these in. Again, just really lightly pushing on here, thinning that with some water. Now, there is definitely a point where you could have too much water too. You've got to balance that out, experiment. It's gonna take some practice to really get the hang of making this work. So there is our clump of fur. We're going to let that dry. So now this is completely dry, and I can't stress that enough. It needs to be completely dry for this to work. Rinsing that brush out. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is make a glaze. I'm going to take my water. I'm going to take that brown paint, the color that I actually want this to be. Don't want it to be too wet. That's too wet. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit thicker. I can tell it's too wet because it starts to bead up. There we go. Now I've got brown fur over the dark. And I can just wipe this over the dark areas too, because it's not really going to show up. And if anything, it just adds a little bit more depth where the light is going to refract through that layer once it's dry. And if you want this an even darker brown, you're just going to repeat that process. We're going to do another glaze over it. You can get that nice deep brown. But we've got everything showing now. All of those hair marks are showing in a way that they would not have if we just tried painting brown with the rake brush over the dark area. Have you subscribed yet? If not, I have a handy button right there. It's round, has an orange arrow going towards it. If you click on that, YouTube probably still won't notify you when videos go live, but you know, it makes me feel happy. You can also click on the bell notification icon. You'll be more likely to hear when I have a new video go up, or sign up for my email newsletter. I send out a email newsletter. I'm really bad at words. Once a week, letting you know whatever new content went up, along with, oh my gosh, why are words so hard? Motivational quotes and stuff. Links are in the description.